This week, House Republicans are advancing several important items on the floor. But among these efforts, I want to take a moment to highlight our steadfast opposition.
Urgent. Joe Biden faces serious accusation and puts everyone on alert. Shocking details revealed. A serious accusation has shaken the political landscape of the United States today, placing President Joe Biden at the center of an unprecedented controversy. Shocking details have emerged, leaving everyone on alert and questioning the future of his administration. The news of the accusation against Biden comes at a critical moment, as his administration faces significant challenges on issues such as the economy, foreign policy, and climate change. See it all now.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. This week, House Republicans are advancing several important items on the floor. But among these efforts, I want to take a moment to highlight our steadfast opposition to placing one-sided pressure on Israel as it battles Hamas. Our conference believes that any effort from the Biden administration to pressure Israel into an immediate ceasefire without conditions weakens Israel's hand, makes it less likely that the hostages will be released, and only benefits Hamas in the short term and the long term. The most frustrating part of the Biden administration's handling of this dire situation is that while Israel goes out of their way to work through back-channel negotiations and set up a temporary ceasefire to get as many of their hostages back as they can, Hamas continues to walk back these good faith efforts. Hamas believes, and this is largely because they believe, that the Biden administration will do the legwork for them. House Republicans refuse to stand for this, and we will remain committed to our ally Israel in their fight against the evils of terrorism. I thank you for your time. We have several to speak today, and we will start with my colleague from Florida, Maria Salazar, and she'll speak further on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for being here, and to Speaker Johnson to allow me the opportunity to introduce this resolution. Our position is that the horrors of October 7th, the attack against Israel, will continue to live in infamy. After 6 months, we're still fighting to shine a light against the terrorist group called Hamas and its support from Iran, which is the greatest evil. We're also opposed to the Biden administration's misguided calls for a one-sided ceasefire. And that is why I proposed Resolution 1117 or 1117 to affirm that we, the House of Representatives, stand strongly against evil, period, in all its forms. Unfortunately, the White House has sent a very clear message that empowers Hamas by subduing Israel to a one-sided ceasefire. Because one thing is clear, Hamas started this unprovoked conflict and they have no intention of ending it. With this resolution, we're sending a very strong message to the international community that we stand with the only democracy in the Middle East, Israel. Through our words, our resolutions, we are conveying a very clear message that we support Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as he leads his country in permissible acts of self-defense. But it is also very important to mention our intention to break the chokehold that Hamas has over the Palestinians. Poor victims being used by this evil force that is only in the business of power. Hamas is not in the business of bringing prosperity or well-being to the Palestinians. The suffering of the Palestinian people under Hamas is immense. 33,000 have died. 70,000 have been injured in this war that Hamas started. And why are they starving? Why are they hungry? In the last week, over 1,000 trucks full of food and medicine have entered Gaza, allowed by Israel. And now there are 3 new corridors to pass food and medicine to the Palestinians. Those are open too. But Hamas always manipulates for political purpose. Hamas cares a lot more to win the war of propaganda against Israel than the war of poverty against its own people. So, Democrats do not have the monopoly on compassion. We are compassionate too, we Republicans. And the compassionate thing to do is to let Israel finish this war so they can end the reign of terror that Hamas has unleashed on the whole region, specifically on the Palestinians. This Congress and this great nation has a long tradition of defending the righteous might, and we will continue our tradition of standing for the freedom of our allies and against terror abroad. We will not stand for one-sided calls for Israel to stand down, and we stand firmly with Israel and its right to defend itself. I yield back. Now I want to introduce our whip, Honorable Congressman Emmer.
Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it. This past Sunday actually marked 6 months since Hamas carried out an attack that resulted in the most deadly day for Jews since the Holocaust. It's been 6 months since Hamas broke a ceasefire to slaughter innocent people in their homes, rape women, kill children, and parade their victims through the streets. It's been 6 months that an unknown number of Israeli and American hostages have been held in Gaza by Hamas. But unfortunately, over the last 6 months, the Democrat Party has cemented its place as the pro-Hamas party. Look no further than President Biden giving Israel ceasefire ultimatums, or Chuck Schumer calling for new elections in Israel. You should probably be thinking about Gaza, where they haven't had one since 2006. This issue is simple. It's a matter of good versus evil, and there is zero room to equivocate. So this week, House Republicans will once again give our Democrat colleagues the opportunity to correct their pro-Hamas record by voting in favor of a common-sense resolution that opposes efforts to place one-sided pressure on Israel with respect to Gaza. We already saw 194 House Democrats side with Hamas by voting against critical Israel aid in November of last year. 166 of them doubled down when given the opportunity to correct their pro-Hamas record in February. I hope the time that has passed has granted them the strength to stand for what is right by voting in favor of our resolution this week. Regardless of what they decide, Americans can rest assured that House Republicans' support for our strongest ally in the Middle East will not waver. And now I yield to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. We're going to have a lot of important debates on the floor this week. We're going to hear from the Prime Minister of Japan tomorrow, and we look forward to welcoming him into the chamber. But as you go around the country, as a number of us do, to talk about a lot of the issues that people care about and want to see Congress and the president addressing, there are some very, very important issues that we're focusing on that this president has walked away from. People around the country want a secure American border, and President Biden, from his first day in office, set us on a course to have an open border to the tune of over 8 million people. More than 35 states in America don't have a population that big of people who have come into our country illegally because the president opened up our southern border, and he refuses to reverse course now that everybody knows how dangerous the steps he's taken have been for our country. You think about the national security implications when you see scores of people on the terrorist watch list who have been caught coming into our country. Those are just the ones we know of. We don't know how many haven't been caught who are on the terrorist watch list who have come into America because they want to do us harm, and now they're able to because President Biden opened up the southern border. So we're bringing a resolution to call out the president on the steps he's taken specifically to open the border. They're very well listed out in Tony Gonzalez's resolution, and we denounce those actions because we as House Republicans want a secure southern border, just like most Americans do. We passed H.R. 2, a bill that would actually secure America's border. President Biden opposed that bill because he doesn't want to secure the border. Speaker Johnson, time and time again, has tried to engage President Biden in an actual discussion about how we can work together to secure the border, and President Biden won't even meet with the Speaker to talk about those specific actions because President Biden doesn't want a secure border. There's something else that President Biden has changed his tune on, and you go back over the years, but especially in these last few months, President Biden has walked away from the strong relationship we have with Israel. You saw Majority Leader Schumer's comments calling for the Prime Minister of Israel to be replaced during a time of war. Who walks away from a friend during a time of war? That's when you stand with your friends the most, as House Republicans continue to do. We are proud to stand with Israel in their right to defend themselves. As Maria Elvira Salazar laid out, not just here at the podium, but in her resolution that every member of Congress is going to have the opportunity to vote on in just a few hours. Do you stand with Israel or not in a time of war and their right to defend themselves from a terrorist organization who ended the ceasefire? If there's any talk of ceasefire, President Biden, that ended on October 7th when Hamas decided to barbarically murder not just Jews in Israel, but others. They're still holding over 100 hostages, including American citizens. And when President Biden called for a ceasefire, he didn't precondition it on Hamas releasing the hostages. You just looked the other day in Michigan. There was a rally held where they were chanting death to America. And President Biden's White House was asked just yesterday, will you denounce those chants of death to America? And President Biden's administration refused to denounce that. When you can't stand up to chants of death for America in America, and then you walk away from your ally Israel, this president has lost his way because he's worried about bowing to the radical left who has walked away from Israel. Well, House Republicans will continue to stand by our ally, especially in this time of war, as Prime Minister Netanyahu and his whole coalition government stand united to eradicate this terrorist organization known as Hamas, sponsored by Iran. Nobody should be walking away from them. We should all be standing together, Republican and Democrat, to show our strength and solidarity with our great ally Israel. And we're going to give everybody that opportunity on the House floor. With that, try to bring up our speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thank you.